So I'd like to welcome back everyone to our now 8th hashtag Hire Me 2022 guest panel speaker series hosted by BCJobs.ca. And my name is Chelsea, as you can see my title here, and I'll be your BC Jobs host for today's panel. All right, and so for those of you who are new to these panels, we usually have 3 special guest speakers from various sectors join us for a little Q&A on what's new with their organizations and to talk a bit about the job market and hiring in BC. We are proud that BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board. And to stay in the loop about companies that are hiring, you can also check out our Innovators podcast to learn more about what industry leaders are saying about the job market. And you can check out our podcast at BCJobs.ca/podcast. So before we get started here today, I want to encourage our audience here to type your questions for the panelists into the chat box at any point. So whenever you think of a question, you can type it into the chat box, and I'll get to your questions during our audience Q&A, which will be about halfway through this panel. And today we will be offering a job candidate pitch event right before we start our audience Q&A. So for this, 3 candidates will be selected for a 30-second pitch to tell our guest speakers about yourself and your experience. The person with the best pitch will then receive a 30-minute resume consultation with BC Jobs. So when we get to this part of the panel today, I will provide some instructions on how to nominate yourself to give a short pitch. Okay, so let's get some introductions going here. I'm going to pass our virtual mic over to Andrea Penny, Talent Advisor at Tableau. Andrea, welcome to our panel. It's wonderful to have you with us, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and Tableau.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. As Chelsea said, my name is Andrea. I'm currently a talent advisor with Tableau, where I work with our engineering leadership team to complete hiring and proactive hiring decisions across North America. And I've been in the recruitment space for the past 12 years, so happy to answer any questions that you might have today.
Excellent. Thanks for that great introduction. So I'd like to introduce Michelle Preble, Director of Talent Acquisition at Vizier. Michelle, great to have you on the panel. Please tell us a bit about yourself and Vizier.
Yeah, hey everyone, great to be here and so nice to see you all. That's hilarious. Somebody just buzzed my apartment and I have no idea who's supposed to be here right now. So I'm based in Vancouver, British Columbia. I am the Director of Talent Acquisition for Vizier. I've been with Vizier. I was a COVID joiner, so I joined at the end of 2020. I've been in talent acquisition, 2005, maybe I started in talent acquisition. So been a really fun ride and learned a lot. So keen to help you all with anything that you need in relation to, helping your job search or figuring out how to break into new industries.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Michelle. Just checking with Mabel again, if you're able. Okay, perfect. So I'll just introduce Mabel again. So this is Mabel Lozano Lopez, Talent Ops at Clear. And Mabel, we'd love to hear about yourself and a little bit more about Clear.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for joining us. I apologize for the technical glitch earlier. I don't know what was happening. Like Chelsea said, my name is Mabel. I've been in talent acquisition for about 6-7 years now. I can't even remember. I also joined Clear during COVID, so I will use that phrase. I really like Michelle, a COVID joiner. Definitely a term now. And what I do here is my title is Talent Operations Manager. I oversee a couple of different areas within Clear. So talent acquisition, talent operations, analytics, and compensation. So happy to answer any questions, throw them my way. I'm an open book. So happy to chat about Clear, about recruiting, anything that you folks are curious about.
Awesome. And I'm sure there will be questions for you about that, Mabel. All right. So thanks so much for telling us about yourselves. And now that we know our panelists a little bit better, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with before we move over to our pitch event and our audience Q&A. So the next questions that I have are geared more towards like what's new at their companies for 2022, but I've also thrown in a couple questions under the theme of company culture. So I'll start off with Michelle. So Visier is having a pretty busy year so far with a customer conference of 1,800 attendees under your belt and the asset acquisition of YVA.ai. What are Visier's goals for the rest of 2022?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely been a lot of fun at Visier. We've been growing, and we've obviously had a couple of big milestones towards the tail end of last year with running our Series E with Goldman Sachs, and then of course getting a $1 billion valuation. And whilst that valuation is pretty amazing, it doesn't necessarily speak to the health or the the future progress of the company, because it is just a valuation. And so for us, the thing that we're really excited for is it looks like as a company, we'll cross the $100 million in annual recurring revenue. So 100 million in ARR by about Q3 of this year. And as people who follow the SaaS world, like that's a big thing. There's not a lot of companies that are private that get to cross that threshold. So it sets us up, beautifully for potential IPO, or who knows, just further investment and continued running as a private company. So everyone's fairly laser focused on making sure that we do cross that threshold, because that'll just be a really amazing shining moment for us as a Vancouver startup, and being 12 years old. So I think that's where the majority of attention comes from. But obviously, like that's a big thing, right? And that's just not like there's so many different facets that go into crossing $100 million. So there's both growth in headcount and but also execution from our current staff and various projects that we have ongoing. So to say it's just focused on the 100 million is probably doesn't necessarily give enough credit to everything that probably still going on to get us there. So it'll be a busy time.
That's really impressive and very exciting for Visier. Congrats. My next question here is for Mabel. So Clear has been achieving so many awards these past couple of years, from BC Clean Tech Awards to Technology Fast 50 2021 Canada, that was a bit of a mouthful, to European Wind Investment Awards. Can you tell us a bit about Clear's recent achievements?
Yes, absolutely. So very exciting news that we've, it always feels great to get recognized by external parties, because obviously a lot of times you keep all of that recognition and all of that excitement internally. So having somebody like validate that is always very rewarding. So as you mentioned, there's two main areas that we get recognized for, and it's growth and clean tech. And Clear is very unique to that. So we've been around for 5 years now. It was our 5th anniversary, Clearversary, if I want to be a little bit cheesy, this last January. So we're still a fairly young Vancouver startups, I would say. But last year we started 2021 with around 50 people, and we closed the year with almost 120. So it was a really impressive year. So that's where the growth awards are coming. We also launched a couple of new products. So our portfolio and our offering keeps expanding. And then on the other side is the clean tech side of things. I'm not sure how you all are, how familiar you are with the clean tech industry, but it's an industry that has it's interesting because it's been around for many, many years. Like we've all been aware of, wind and solar energy for many years now, but really clean tech, SaaS, and industries that are supporting, clean energy, they're really just arising. So it's a very exciting time, and being one of the few companies really in the world who's doing work around this, we're getting a lot of recognition for that. So that's probably the two areas that we're going to continue to grow in the next few years.
Well, congratulations on your 5-year Clearversary. That's really big.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is for Andrea. So Tableau has been busy this year as well with product developments like storytelling tools. What are you excited about for the next leg of this year for Tableau?
Yes, thank you very much. So we just actually had our Tableau conference take place in Las Vegas in May last month. And we did announce some new product features. So the most exciting thing is that we're shifting to Tableau Cloud. So essentially moving online and allowing our customers to make decisions from the data quicker, and also across enterprise and public spaces. And what's exciting about that for me is I'm working obviously with our engineering leadership. And so I'm responsible for basically the planning and as well as the success of hiring for our developers to make these features come to life and bring this Tableau vision to fruition. So it's exciting to be part of kind of the driving seat behind our product and engineering functions. And as well, in the same space as my colleagues, it's that, you know, Tableau was acquired by Salesforce in 2019. And so a lot of our direction now is following the Salesforce model. And so how are we incorporating as a business and as customers working across those two spaces? So with acquisitions, as Michelle, I'm sure can speak to, does come some struggles, but also some exciting opportunities. And so that's really what our team is focused on, and what's keeping me here right now and keeping me excited and energized about the hiring space.
Fantastic to hear about. All right, next question is for Michelle. How would you describe the company culture at Visier? The website employee testimonials are outstanding.
Yeah, you know, I think we're really lucky. We're 470 people right now. And, you know, it's kind of like that tech sweet spot where, you know, up until, you know, you get, you know, towards 1,000 people, you still get to know everyone. Like you still walk past everyone and you kind of know everyone's name, even if you don't know them well. Like we're still at a size where all of the people that are based here in Vancouver, mind you, sorry, fire truck. You know, you get to walk around an office where people still know each other. So there is that level of like familial camaraderie type thing. And I mean, obviously we're growing globally. So, you know, people become a little bit more disparate, but I'd say one of the things that our teams try to do is continue to optimize for remote. I mean, every tech company out there has always kind of had to do that for the most part. So when everything happened during COVID, we didn't necessarily need to change our infrastructure, but certainly just the attention on how we support people in their environment, regardless of whatever working situation that they're in. So I'd say it's always been a culture of high collaboration and communication, but we've really kind of zeroed in on how to make sure that we continue to be better at that, but also just continuously like listening and adapting our things like our benefits and the cadence in which everybody gets together, you know, in like an all company, all hands to talk about different things that are going on in business, so that people that aren't based in BC really have a feel for what's happening in the company. So it's definitely a company culture that we want people to feel like they can build their career here, that they're going to be doing impactful work. It's like that connection between like values, mission, purpose, you know, people believe in why the company exists, they like what we do, but also making sure that we can meet their like financial and personal goals as well. So it's kind of, we do blend the two, and you know what, we're not always perfect. We get bad reviews sometimes, we don't do everything great, but one of the things that I would say that we do very well is continuously create a culture of listening. And we survey employees a lot, and we make a lot of changes from those surveys to make sure that no employee's life cycle or no employee's journey is constant, right? Like everybody's life ebbs and flows and changes. And so making sure that we do things that are always taking the temperature of how employees feel now, as opposed to listening to stuff that maybe be 6 months old, I think has been really, really important to us to maintain that culture where everybody feels a sense of belonging. So yeah, but I'll also caveat that by saying that like culture means very different things to different people, right? Like it's hard for you to just have a catch-all answer that gives everybody what they need. And so through our interview process, we really try to create very transparent and authentic experiences. So if we're working with a candidate and they say, hey, I'd really like to meet this person so that I can understand what it's like as a day in the life of, no problem, you know, and we can make that happen. It's not that we're executing a very rigid structure that people fall into. We created like a collaborative experience so that people understand that Visier is absolutely for them or absolutely isn't, and equally helping our hiring managers understand if the person that we're hiring into the company, we've got enough tools in our toolbox to help them be successful.
I love that you actually listen to employee feedback. That's so important, and that's so great to hear. Yeah, awesome. Okay, Mabel, I've got a question for you. Your company culture must be so interesting as well. Now that being that you're in clean tech, I noticed that you provide employees with a learning stipend to encourage continuing education. How important is education to company culture?
Yes, like you said, our culture and values especially are very important, and we are a very mission-driven company. When it comes to learning stipend, we really let it up to like managers and the person decide what learning means to them. What we care about is development. So making sure that we continue to support everybody here in their professional development. For some people it might be public speaking, for some people it might be reading books. So really by having a stipend then that helps them whatever learning and whatever stage they are of the career, use it towards whatever they want it really, and it's up to them and the manager to decide that and figure that out. So that's what the learning stipend for. When you say, I think your question was, what was the last bit? How important is it education or learning?
How important is education to company
Education.
culture?
It depends on the role. I don't think there's the right answer for that. There's people that I think we have a little bit of everything here. We have self-taught. A few months ago, we actually hired someone that this person used to be a chef and moving to like analytics type of work, but really just like learning on their own. So we have that. We have people that are really passionate about, going back to school and getting their PhDs, or they came into Clear and then they decided they wanted to pursue like an engineering career. So we really have a little bit of everything. How important education is to us, I think it's more important that we see people thriving for development and really trying to learn more. I think that's what's more important than like the traditional education piece.
Fantastic. And what a wonderful initiative that you offer.
Thank you.
Last question for Andrea. Tableau has offices and positions available globally. What's it like to be part of a global team in terms of company culture?
Perfect, thank you. And I just want to follow up too on what Mabel said. I love that you are fostering that internal movement and education piece of your current employees, because it's so important to understand the current skill set of what your workforce has. And I think that points back to this question that you've asked, Chelsea, is like, what is it like to be part of a global team? Well, in order to be part of a global team, you have to understand what it's like to work in different parts of the globe and different policies and procedures and beliefs that people have as well. So I think it's really important to understand from a recruitment and talent management perspective the skills that your workforce has, and then enable them to put those skills to work. And so whether that's through our internal education or through scholarship programs or through volunteer opportunities and allowing people to give back to the communities that they're part of, these are all initiatives that we offer. And hopefully they align with the communities that we're hiring in and the candidates that we're representing as well on a global scale. And I'm lucky to have been part of global recruitment teams for for the majority of my career, actually. And I think that it's super exciting to be able to work on global projects with people, to learn about the way that they do their work, and build diverse cultures and project teams to give those offer different perspectives on the work that you're doing.
Loved your answer. That's very interesting. Not just company culture here, but also learning about different cultures. All right. Well, thank you, Andrea, Mabel, and Michelle, for answering all of my questions. It's great to know more about your organizations and the exciting things going on for you all this year. Next up, before we dive into the questions from the audience, I'm going to draw 3 names for our pitch event. and invite each person to give a 30-second pitch about themselves. The person with the best pitch will receive an email from me later with an invitation to a 30-minute resume consultation with BC Jobs. And I'll put the instructions here in the chat for you. So all I need from you to nominate yourself is your name. So I'm just going to type this into the chat here. Pitch event instructions. So if you've been to some of our past panels, you'll probably be familiar with this. So please, in order to nominate yourself, I just need your name, location, and area of expertise. Okay, so these pitch events I find are a really good way to brush up on those rusty public speaking skills and to push yourself out there, because you will be having interviews coming up if you are an active job seeker. And this is just, think of it as practice for a future interview that you may have, and maybe you might have with one of our panelists here today. So who knows? So for our pitch events, if you would like to give a 30-second pitch about yourself, this could be about your work experience, your student experience. You can put your name into the chat, and I will choose the first 3 brave souls who nominate themselves. All right. And okay, we've got, all right, Deanna. Okay, we've got 3 people. Well done. Okay, so first up, I'll invite Deanna to join us on screen. You can unmute yourself and tell us about yourself in 30 seconds.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Nice to
Great.
meet you, Deanna.
Nice to meet everyone. Hello, I'm Deanna, and I'm actually a fashion designer. And what I realized through fashion was that all day, every day, I was dealing with user experiences, and I wanted to take what I knew from working with customers and working with people, essentially having hearts to hearts with everyone. I wanted to expand my knowledge, not just in fashion, but with how people interact with the world around them. And that's how I found myself falling into UX, and I've gone head over heels for it. So again, nice to meet everyone, and I hope you're all enjoying your day.
So interesting, Deanna. I have so many questions, but maybe one of our panelists has a follow-up question for you before I ask you one.
Sure, I've got a question. So Deanna, what do you think your main superpower from your career in fashion, like what's setting you up for success in your UX career?
I think one of the true passions that I had in fashion, I actually, when I graduated from fashion school, I focused my collection on plus size clothing because I felt that there's such a need. These people are so underserviced in the markets, in the malls. The specialty boutiques are way overpriced for an average person. And I felt that sympathy and that empathy with these shoppers. And I really think that my experience with connecting with people and sharing their experiences and understanding what they need and want really brings over into UX, because so much of research and designing experiences is exactly that, really understanding what people need and want.
I absolutely loved your answer.
Me too. Thank you.
Great question, Michelle. Well, thank you so much, Deanna, for your pitch today. You're the brave first one, so well done. All right, our next brave soul to nominate themselves is, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Adetola, who's in Burnaby.
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, nice to meet you, and welcome to our panel today. So whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear your pitch.
Awesome, thanks. My name is Adetola. I currently live in Burnaby. I used to be in the courier services industry before, but I used to teach myself how to code. But eventually, my friend who went to Lighthouse Labs, he told me to give it a go. So I decided to just stop working, and I went to the boot camp, and it was a really fun experience because you get to learn a lot about yourself and things you can do, and it's just like it just feels like there's so much the world has to offer, and it's really been a good learning experience. So like my what I usually do now is I just on a daily basis I try and improve my skills. I'm always learning something new, and hopefully to get something good out of everything eventually. But yeah, I also went to Simon Fraser University. I started labor studies. Yeah, for now I'm actually just actively looking for a job in web development. I'm a full stack developer. I just finished making my portfolio, and I have like six projects of work done, and I think that's pretty much all I have to say for now.
Great pitch. I've heard a lot of great things about the Lighthouse Labs boot camps. In fact, I've actually met several people who have come to our panels in the past who have gone to these boot camps. So they're pretty popular.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, good. I don't know if any of our panelists have any follow-up questions for you, Aditola. Okay, if there's no questions from them, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years in your career?
I see myself having a stable job, and I see myself still learning because you still have to keep learning in tech scene. But hopefully be a senior or hopefully a senior in 5 years time from now, and hopefully to be at least very good at what I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure in 5 years you will be an expert. Okay, well, thank you so much for your pitch today. Well done. Okay, and our last pitch candidate is Aditola. So apologies to everyone else who's nominated yourselves, but first come, first serve, and please come back to our next panels, and you can nominate yourself quicker. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ashraf.
Hello from Langley. So my name is Ashraf Hiddeti. Nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity and hire me 2020. I hope for all the auditors. So I am professional engineer in water resources, registered at the Association of Engineers in British Columbia. I'm holding a PhD in civil and environmental engineer from Tokyo Metropolitan University. I have almost 11 years sound experience between academia and industry. So in water resources management, more specifically in flood risk mapping. In my very most recent project, I extensively contributed to a project at the province scale of in New Brunswick. The results were recently published online for public use. So it's I participated in developing flood risk maps in covering the province of New Brunswick. In terms of transferable skills, and this is my point, during my, as you can notice, so this is engineering and PhD and so on. So I'm good in programming, MATLAB, R, Python, and all along my work in academia and in flood mapping and so on, I'm dealing with big data. So I know how to use what we call data mining algorithm. So it's like I saw what Vizier et Tableau, what they were doing. It's really very important. Now we are at the era of big data. And also for CLEARS, I'm really very open. So they are about what we call the clean energy. This is the future. About the solar energy or wind energy. So I'm really so willing to find or to carve a niche there if I am welcomed. And thank you. Sorry, maybe I hope that no more than 30 seconds. Thank you.
I don't actually ever time anybody, but well done. Oh, it was really interesting to get to know you more. Before I ask you any questions, maybe one of our panelists might have a question for you about what you've just talked about.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Ashraf, is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Ashraf. Yeah, I'm writing it in French.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm just curious on, why you decided to pursue a career in waste treatment, waste management, and now that you've, have so much experience, like, do you want to move away from that industry, or do you want to do something different? Like, now that you're looking for a job, I guess, what do you want to stick to that area? You want to go into something new?
So definitely, actually, I mean, it's like I'm widening the horizons. So as I said, I have some transferable skills, and I mean, and this is my way. There is no limit for learning, and I am a fast learner. So I can see that data, it's everywhere. Big data is everywhere. So how to make data speak to decision makers or even for any stakeholders. So this is something that I can do. Also, I see what Clear is doing. I mean, in this 5 years and this fast growing from you said 50 to 100, 120 people. So, and there is a very high demand on what we call the green energy. So now really it's, we can see everywhere this Tesla car. Sorry, I don't want to make advertising. So this car with electricity and so on. So the solar energy, I am really, and I already apply it to what you have general application as project engineering or data science analyst. I mean, if you, in your company.
Thank you for answering. And I may be speaking, a little bit for Michelle and Andrea here, but I do think the 3 companies are heavily focused on data. So there's, definitely a big future, at least on this panel, right? So you're spot on.
Awesome. And that was my question too. So Mabel actually took the words right out of my mouth. I don't know if Andrea or Michelle have any last questions for you.
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Excellent. Okay, well done to our 3 pitch candidates on your pitches today. Keep an eye on your email inbox for an email from me inviting you to a resume consultation with BC Jobs, which is AKA me. So yeah, keep an eye on your email inbox, and well done. So our next segment on this panel today is our audience Q&A. So I'm just going to go back up through the chat here, and I noticed that there were some questions from Deanna. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand. The raise hand button is at the bottom of your screen under reactions, which is a little smiley face. If you click on that, you'll see the raised hand option. But I'm going to go with the questions in the chat first, and then I'll get to any raised hands. All right, so Deanna, you have a question for Michelle. Do you want to come back on screen and ask your question if you're still here?
I'll come back on voice.
Perfect.
So Michelle, I had a question, and I was excited to hear that Vizier takes so much care about feedback, but I do know from hearing from other people and other stories around, some employees fear giving too honest of their feedback in case it comes back to bite them in the butt. So I was wondering, how does Vizier balance that request for the honesty with the comfort and the security of their employees?
Really great question, because that's like completely normal, right? Especially in smaller organizations where you don't necessarily have anonymity by numbers. What we do in Visier is we collect feedback in a lot of places, right? So managers collect feedback in one-to-ones, and that's more of a trusted relationship. We also have company-wide feedback sessions, which is completely anonymous. So that is facilitated through a piece of software that we use. And we do 2 big ones a year and 2 small ones a year. So there's 2 that happen that have like 60 questions in them. So that's a lot, because being a data company, we value data, and obviously we look for, trends over time. And so the 2 big ones talk about really big organizational level things that we're looking to influence. And then the small ones are sort of like temperature taking. How's everyone feeling based on what we talked about last time? And they're anonymous. So the anything that you would self-identify is voluntary. So if you work in a small team and you're like, oh gosh, if I say that I identify as female and I'm in this team or this division and there's only 3 females because we're a small division, what if that tells people who I am? Then you just don't have to identify. So we make it so that it's up to the employee's level of comfort. It's also the information that is only reviewed by specific trusted advisors within the people and culture team. So it's only information, especially sensitive information around what people choose to identify as. We keep that only through a couple of basically my boss, our executive, our chief people officer, and 2 other people that are responsible for tabling and analyzing that data that comes in. So the information that then gets distilled down to, hiring manager level, it is less identifiable, depending on the type of question that we're getting, or that we're getting answers to. So we try to balance it. So we ask for feedback directly from people, and even in all company meetings, our chat blows up and people ask some really honest questions. Like, it's kind of amazing, like some of the stuff that people are willing to put out there, because they're not the only person that thinks it. So I think what we've shown over time is that we are a trusted environment, and people are not treated differently if they have an opinion that might be contrarian, that everybody deserves a voice. So thank you for the question, Deanna, but to answer it more succinctly, we have a mix of things that can be done anonymously, as well as things that can be done on more of a one-to-one setting or more of a visual setting.
Awesome. I hope that answers your question, Deanna. And I noticed that there is a question from Mabel, also from Deanna, if you want to ask your question from Mabel.
Oh, yes. First of all, thank you, Michelle. That was a really great response. And yes, I'm full of questions today. Mabel, I was so excited to hear that Clear dedicates to continual learning, because I myself love continual learning. I just like to be a sponge and soak up everything. And I had a question. I often see job postings say that a junior position or an entry-level position requires a number of years of experience in their field. And, if someone's trying to break into their industry, they may not have that time or be able to get that experience if you already need experience to get there. So I was wondering, does Clear put any faith into those wanting to learn and trying to learn in their new career, or are those experience kind of requirements something that's pretty rock solid, unmovable, kind of the 100% you need that?
Yes, absolutely. I just want to say just something really quickly about Michelle's last answer, that I think she's not giving enough credit to Visier about, but building a culture that allows people to be that candid and then transparent, that people are giving feedback and they don't feel like it has to be, anonymized. It's really awesome, and it's really a testament to the culture that they're building at Visier. So I really love that. Anyways, Diana, moving on to your question. It really depends, right? We do have to balance, every time that we hire, we want to make sure that we're bringing the right person for the team. We want to make sure that we're supporting our teams. Reality is that we are a small organization, and there's going to be times that the teams cannot take on an entry or a junior hire, right? When that is the case, then we will not post for a junior position. We're going to post for an intermediate or for, the specific experience that we're looking for. When we do post for junior positions, what you see in the job description is what we're truly, honestly, what we're looking for. So if it requires experience or it doesn't, some require a little bit, at least like knowledge of it, like not professional experience, but knowledge. But when we do hire for those junior and entry level positions, it is what we mean. And when we are interviewing, we're also very transparent and we're very candid on, what we're looking for, what is important, and what skills this the person we're looking for needs, and what we're willing to train and learn on the job.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. That's a really great answer.
All right, I think I've reached the last of the questions in the chat. So if anybody has any questions off the top of your head, feel free to raise your hand, but raise your hand with the reactions, not your physical hand. I'll do first come, first serve. In the meantime, while you're thinking of some, we've got a question already. Perfect. So Adetola's got one, and yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's one thing that job seekers do that you feel they could do better that could increase their chances of actually landing a new role?
Sure, I can take that question on. Thank you for asking. I also wanted to just follow up on what Mabel said for Deanna's question on the opportunities, and it kind of ties into this as well. There's a couple of things that if you're pivoting careers that you kind of want to consider as well. So one, a lot of times candidates are submitting just a chronological resume. So I worked at XYZ during such and such a period of time. But what we're not seeing from those types of applications is what you've actually completed and your roles and responsibilities at those organizations. And so if you're in a position where you're breaking into or from one industry to the next, consider that there are other types of resumes available as opposed to just a chronological resume. So think of combining those like functional resumes that outlines what you've done in your education, what you've done in your in the workplace, what you've volunteered for, some projects that you might have completed. And what that will do is give us as recruiters and the recruiting teams at these organizations a holistic view into your experience, as opposed to just you're bringing the words on the page to life. And in addition to that, one thing that I would recommend is obviously LinkedIn is a huge tool for hiring. So make sure that your profiles are up to date. There are tutorials online for free on how to update and optimize your profile. Make sure that you're connecting with people in your network at these organizations where you would like to work. Follow our companies on the company page. In the background, in the recruiting tool on LinkedIn, we can see if you're following us. We can see if you're open to work. We can see if you're connected with people that we know. And so those are the types of things that as candidates, you should be leveraging to elevate your application to these companies.
All right, I hope that answers your question, Adetola.
It did. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, don't underestimate the importance of LinkedIn. I can definitely say that. All right. Do we have any more questions for our speakers? Feel free to raise your hand if you've got some questions. I've got a question myself, so while you're thinking of some questions looking for the raise hand feature below under reactions, I'll pose a question here to all three of our panelists. And this is in regards to education. So something I hear often from job candidates is, how important is the traditional academic education background on a resume? Are companies looking more for experience nowadays, or maybe just a certificate or a diploma? Or do they need to have that, that bachelor's degree, that master's degree for the role that they're applying for?
I can talk to that one a little bit, but I would love to hear Andrea and Mabel's thoughts on this too, because I'm sure it's something that gets brought front and center to the recruitment when they're all working with hiring managers. But I think it's especially now with cultures of inclusivity and ensuring that everybody has an equal opportunity at putting their hand up for roles. I think having arbitrary barriers in place around specific levels of education is really challenging, right? And it can lead to bias in the recruitment process, because certainly at Visier, we pride ourselves on hiring candidates that don't really meet the job description, that, hey, maybe we can support somebody and develop them into the role. That's not always the case in certain areas that I'm sure Andrea comes into contact with herself, where there's gonna sometimes just be base level technical skills that really have to exist. And certainly my technical recruitment team comes into contact with this themselves. So it can't be avoided sometimes in relation to like a technical skill or level of experience that's required. But I think, saying that it has to be a particular bachelor's or a particular diploma can be problematic, because you may rule out a proportion of your candidate pool that could be incredible for the position. So yeah, I think if you are going to put those things in there, I think you just have to ask yourself the question, hey, does this actually matter? Is there a reason? Is it because I do need somebody who's done X, Y, Z, like particularly say data science? Is there something in data science that is a barrier to entry? Have to have kind of crossed this path in order to get into that profession? Or are we being arbitrary and saying that, hey, we just need that because we haven't actually taken the time to ask ourselves the question if that's really relevant to this role?
Right on. Oh, and Andrea, perfect.
I was just going to follow up on that too, and just putting my recruiter hat on here for a second. Working with hiring managers, those are conversations that we have to have. Is this degree actually required, or can we accept a combination of experience in different areas as well? So definitely a struggle that it's always it's always been like this, so we need it moving forward, and we're trying to break that pattern with a lot of hiring, at the global level, especially because we want to broaden the talent pool, and we want to make sure that we're hiring from non-traditional sources and non-traditional backgrounds, and giving people the opportunity to make an impact. So interesting question. Definitely lots of discussion that happens in the recruitment world on that one.
Certainly, and I know it's different for every company. If you have a company that you need to have a lot of scientists on board, degrees are important for that. And maybe Mabel, you might have some thoughts on this too.
I agree with what Andrea and Michelle had said. I don't think that is of utmost important, to be awesome. Like I'm trying to think, but I don't think I've had. I probably have, but I can't think of an example to say, yes, there was this one time that this person asked me for a specific background. I think it's more about the technical skill set and the curiosity to really dive deep into your career, really knowing best practices and continuous learning. I think those two areas are way more important than actually having a title. So in my, and this is my experience, I just haven't seen it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering my question. I'll move over to Lucas. You had your hand raised first.
Okay, awesome.
Welcome.
Yeah, so just to add on to that point, so you guys said that traditional backgrounds aren't totally necessary, but what are you looking for if you hire someone from a non-traditional background? Because for me, I also went to Lighthouse Labs bootcamp. I'm transitioning from another industry, and so I'm also just trying to get my foot in the door and say that if you do hire someone from a non-traditional background and you're willing to train them. And I think Michelle said that they have opportunities to, make sure that your employees are successful. Like how, like, is there like a time limit where you expect them to be brought up to speed to that, to like fill in that role? Or is it like kind of just continuous learning, step by step?
Really great question, Lucas. I'll open up the question to one of our panelists.
I can start firstly. Thank you for the question. I think there are, as we explained, there are a number of roles that do have those steadfast requirements for education and experience, right? But if there are situations and companies and circumstances that are open to hiring at, from a boot camp or from another degree or program area, there oftentimes comes with training and enablement for those types of positions. And so, for example, I can think of a couple of organizations that I've worked at, in Tableau included, where there are boot camps for new hires, and there's an extensive onboarding process that will get you ramped up so you're able to contribute and make an impact. And that's the reason that we're hiring you into those specific positions. And so my recommendation for you as someone pivoting into a different industry would be make sure that from a job search perspective, you're actually searching for positions that are relevant to the skills that you have either in your previous career or have learned in your boot camp. And so you're not starting your search very broadly and applying for positions where you don't have that experience. What you're doing is you're aligning the experience that you currently have and are bringing to the table and learned at the boot camp, and now you're hoping to get an opportunity to amplify that experience. So you're not coming in completely unprepared to contribute to the role that you're applying for.
Awesome, thanks, Andrea.
And just to add on to that, like I've hired people in the past from boot camps into, I'm not sure which boot camp you're taking, but in my case, it's been software developers.
Sorry, this?
Lighthouse Labs.
Lighthouse Labs, okay.
Yeah. And what I've seen these candidates have is just like they're very curious. They're very willing to like go deep and to really ask the hard questions and to ask for help and to say, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to go find a solution and being proactive. So I think I would, say those three things, like being proactive, being really curious, and being okay with like saying don't know, but I want to learn more, and like getting those answers. I think people that I've hired in the past with bootcamp, from bootcamp, they usually have those three things.
Hey, awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Mabel. All right, and I hope that answers your question, Lucas.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks,
Chelsea. I might just add something super quick.
Sure, yeah, for sure, Michelle.
One thing that I would say is it is tough, right? Like when you're trying to like stand out from the crowd as a candidate that would be, say, non-traditional for that path, it's not easy. And so neither one of us, or none of the three of us, are trying to intimate that making that move into a role that you haven't been in before is an easy one. Like that can be a longer journey. So set yourself up with the right expectations. There will probably be more no's than yeses. And so don't take that as you should stop trying, right? Like that doesn't mean that what you are doing and your skills are not valuable and that you won't get there. It just means that sometimes it takes a while, and some companies are more amenable to that than others. And it is worth continuing to try. My favorite example of this is actually one of my closest girlfriends, really similar to Deanna. She actually had a career in fashion for like 15 years. She moved to Vancouver because she just wanted to restart, her life again and try something new. And she went to, I think it was BrainStation, and did a product management course. She now works for Microsoft, and she's a product manager, and she's now a team leader. So in 3 years, she's managed to go up to team lead role. But the way that she got that was a little bit of luck, right? I mean, it's her being wonderful, but it's also because she went to networking events. She spoke to panels. So she hung around. She was telling me, she's like, Michelle, I literally hang around at the back of the room. And of course, this was pre-COVID. And thankfully, we are going to have in-person events again. So stuff like this can happen a little bit more organically. But she would literally hang out by the water cooler and wait for the panelists to be free. And she'd like run in there and have a chat to them. So you do have to be a bit brave, and you have to be resilient to know that it might not happen tomorrow, but that doesn't mean to stop trying, right? Like you're totally going to get there, but you do just have to keep that resiliency up and do the things that other people aren't doing. So everybody can update LinkedIn and say they're looking for a job, but recruiters have so much inbound things, I'll call it, vying for our attention, right? Whether it's applicants, whether it's hiring managers, whether it's other vendors that are hoping to work with our organization. And so when you're trying to stand out from the crowd, doing different things like getting yourself in front of hiring managers or doing something a little bit amazing and quirky that kind of catches someone's attention so that you can have that intro conversation with them. Or if you notice the company is hosting an event and you really want to work for them because you really align to their values and purpose, have an informational coffee with anybody in the company. Like I get people saying to me, hey, this candidate reached out and asked if I would mind having an informational coffee with them. They did a virtual coffee, and then those employees send the people our way and say, hey, this person was great. They really jumped out of their box and their comfort zone to ask me for a virtual coffee. And please like keep them in mind for the future. So like, sorry, little tangent there, but just, yeah, please stick with it if it's getting frustrating, because it'll absolutely happen.
I absolutely agree with what you just said, Michelle. It's keeping on the job hunt. I know it's tough. It's tough out there. It can be disheartening when you're sending applications and you're not hearing back. But try reaching out to recruiters and HR on LinkedIn, ask for that virtual coffee, as Michelle was just saying. And I think you'll be surprised at how many people you'll hear back from and who will agree to, give you a chance.
Yeah. Better yet, hiring managers and employees, right? Recruiters will have hundreds of people a week trying to get their attention to look at their job application. But sometimes somebody who's in the job that you really want, if you really want to be a product manager, reach out to 50 product managers and say like, hey, I am dying to get into product management. Would you mind, 15 minutes of virtual coffee with me, or, anything to that effect. So don't always go to the absolute source of where the jobs are coming from, i.e. the recruiter. Go to the people that can actually help you understand that profession a little bit more and start building your network.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Okay, well, thank you for your question, Lucas. And I'm going to move on to Bhavesh. She's been waiting so patiently to ask their question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Can you hear me right?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. And thank you, panelists, for spending time with us today. This is a lot of great insight. I have a question about your resume selection process. Based on my experience, I'm sure you're going through something very similar. I'm not in HR, but when you do something over and over for years, you become really good at it. So in your context, when you look at 100 resumes, I'm sure you can pick out 2 good ones within 2 minutes. So you spend a couple of seconds on each one and say, oh, I'm pretty sure, this is junk, this is good. So what is it that you look for in that first 2-3 seconds? What stands out?
Great question. Anyone want to tackle that question? Okay, I see Mabel's unmuted herself.
I can jump in really quickly, but I'm pretty sure, every recruiter works a little bit different and every company looks for different things. So this is one perspective. For me, it would be, seeing some alignment with the company's value and mission somewhere. It could be one sentence, it could be something, simple. And then the second thing would be that the responsibilities of the job and what we're trying to achieve by filling that position is something that you can do. So not only like listing exactly what we listed as responsibilities, but like giving examples. So for instance, if I'm looking for a technical recruiter, I would want to see, something like I helped scale the engineering team from, 10 to 15 people, and some of the, programming language that I work with were XYZ, so that I know, what they're talking about. So that's what I look for.
Okay, great to know. I hope that kind of answers your question there, Bhavesh.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. Thank you, Mabel.
Thank you for your question. Oh, go ahead.
Another quick follow-up question. Just today, someone told me that cover letters, people do read it, and it's important that you can kind of use it to tie your experience with the job. How many times cover letters are actually read?
That's a great question, and it might just vary on the company. So I'll hand this question over, and if we can. Oh, I see Michelle's unmuted herself. Yeah, I'd love to hear your answer, Michelle, on this.
Oh, okay. I think I didn't mean to do that. Anyways, gosh, I am in two minds about cover letters, if I'm being really honest. What I think people make the mistake of is thinking that resumes are interviews on paper, and they're not. Interviews are career snapshots, right? And so sometimes what happens with a cover letter is, more often than not, the ones that I read talk about a lot of intangibles. So I'll give you an example. I am a highly communicative, enthusiastic, and driven customer service professional. That's wonderful, but there's not a single person in the world that applies to a job that says I'm a bad communicator and I'm not really enthusiastic. And oh, by the way, I'm bad with customers. So what I always say to people is make your words have impact. And reading over some of the things that you write and like covering up the fancy words and being like, did I actually say anything in that sentence? Like if I took out all of my adjectives, did that sentence say anything about me or what I contribute? So for example, if you're going to talk about your skills in customer service, you want to relate that to a tangible example. So as demonstrated in my 15 years of doing X, Y, and Z within this company environment, right? So I can do this because I did this here for 15 years, right? So you're kind of relaying, like you're linking those things. Realistically, I should be able to see that from your resume. So do I need to say that in a cover letter? So again, you got to make sure, like, why am I writing a cover letter? Unless the company has specifically asked for it. Like, for example, we love our co-op students to write cover letters. Why was Visier the company you wanted to do your co-op at? Like, what is it about our product, our mission, our values that really spoke to you? Amazing. I love it. And the reason why is because co-op students we are hiring on enthusiasm, on curiosity, on other things because they don't have tangible work experience to draw from. So that cover letter is really impactful because it gives us a window into their brain. So that's why I say I'm in two minds. I think cover letters are amazing in certain circumstances, but do I think it gives you a leg up in your average job application? Not unless it's been specifically asked for. So for me, I would rather a job seeker take 15 minutes to give me a resume that really speaks to my position that you're applying to, as opposed to writing a blanket cover letter and a blanket resume, because not every resume is applicable to every single job you're applying to. So what I advise people to do a lot, have a master resume and then go, okay, well, if I want to do account management and I want to do sales and I would actually look at customer success as well, those are 3 different skills. But you could be the same person and very capable of doing those 3 different things, but your resume is probably going to read a little differently for each of those things. So work on tailoring your resume to the position you're applying to, as opposed to doing a slap bang, one cover letter, one resume for everything.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michelle, for a very clear answer on that one.
Yes, great tips. And I don't know how important cover letters are at Clear or Tableau. Do you guys read them, or is the resume more important?
So we're in our applicant tracking system, sourcing and looking for candidates and reading the applications and reading the cover letters on a regular basis. And so, I mean, there's a myth out there that robots are screening all the resumes, and you have to put keywords on your application that are going to beat the ATS and things like that. But if I unfortunately still have to do my job, so I'm in there every day looking for suitable candidates for positions. So keep that in mind as well. In a lot of cases at larger companies, there are things called talent communities, and so these are what we would use for our keeping track of our candidates, essentially. So let's say if you apply for a position, you're not necessarily the best fit for this specific role, but you have skills at the company that are applicable and would be suitable for another opportunity. Try to find those companies that have talent communities and are really collecting your applications after. So where does your application go once you're declined? Does it stay in the system? Are you allowing recruiters to contact you for other opportunities? So a lot of companies are confined by like data regulation protection regulations, for example. And so are you clicking the box that says, hey, I would like to receive recruitment communication from this company, or I would like to be contacted for other opportunities? Because in a lot of cases, if you don't check that box, then the recruiter is actually not allowed to contact you. And so keep that in mind as well. If you're applying to a company, hopefully you're not just applying to the position, right? You're aligning yourself with the values and the culture of the company that you're applying for. And in that case, if you're just applying to one position at that company, then you're kind of counting yourself out in a way, because if you don't get it and they can't contact you, then you have to reapply again. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of little, I consent or I agree boxes. A lot of the times we don't check them because we don't want emails. But if it's for a company that you want to work at and an opportunity that you would consider to be a great one, then just make sure that you're following those little clues that sometimes get missed.
Yeah, no, thank you. And actually, I was under that impression that that checkbox was just for getting more spam. But now I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question. And I'm just conscious of the time, so I want to get through the next questions here. We've got 4 people with questions, and thank you, Ian, for your patience. Feel free to ask your question.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Right on. Yeah, thank you so much to the 3 of you for coming in today to talk. So yeah, my name's Ian. I'm a web developer recently out of the Lighthouse Labs program. I'm pivoting from mechanical engineering, where I've worked a lot with cross-functional teams. And so personally, I really value smaller teams that collaborate well and employ lots of empathy. And so my question for you is, when you're working to find the right candidate for a position, what methods do you specifically use to screen for collaborative and empathetic attitudes with people?
Really interesting question.
So just going to jump right in. So for instance, for collaboration, something that we look at is we do build questions in the interview that would ask you about your past experiences. At Clear, that's usually what we focus on. We focus on past experience and, examples and why you did what you did, and really having a reasoning behind it, more than on situational questions. So just being prepared for those, for those questions, because sometimes they ask you right in the spot, and some people are really good at, coming up with something that happened, and some people, like myself, I'm terrible at it. So I need to think ahead. So for us, it's about, asking about, what happened in the past at other workplaces or at the boot camp, for instance, and why you reacted or why you did that.
Yeah, just to carry on from Mabel's thoughts there, totally agree. There's always different questions designed in the interview process, but typically part of my job and Andrea's job and Mabel's job is to design an interview process with our hiring managers that reflects the position we're hiring for. So if we know that we need to hire somebody who has really strong collaboration, project management skills, interdepartmental communication, the interview process should reflect that, right? So whether there's an exercise in there, so quite often at Visier, we use panel interviews where the candidate receives a document that gives them some guidance and a bit of a presentation that they need to put together, and then they will, present that to a group of people. There may be that they'll be interviewing with people from different departments. So ultimately it's like, okay, well, I can speak my own project manager language with another project manager, but what happens when you have to speak to somebody in, product or dev or whatever? So quite often our interview processes will then have people from other teams that might not necessarily impact the hiring decision on this, or sorry, might not necessarily interact with this person on a daily basis, but your ability to interact with them as an interviewer is really key, because you now all of a sudden you can't speak project manager to project manager. You've got to speak project manager to salesperson or to customer success professional or whatever. So to answer your question more aptly, Ian, I think it's really about companies designing recruitment processes for each position and each team that really reflects the type of candidate we need to hire. So we all don't sit there and say, hey, here's the recruitment process, and it doesn't matter who you are and what you do. This is the same experience that you have no matter what job. At Visier, our interview process changes for different hiring managers, for different divisions, for different levels of experience. So there's always a thoughtful design where we're looking at what does the candidate need to be successful and what does Visier need to be successful in that interview process.
Yeah, and I can just follow up. Final words on that from me as well is with respect to working with your recruiter. And so if you do get an interview at a company, make sure that you're asking your recruiter what each component of the interview is going to entail. So is it a technical interview? Is it a behavioral interview? If it's behavioral, are they focused on situations like involving product or involving development, or be really specific with your questions. And oftentimes recruiters will hop on a call with you and give you that like pre-interview rundown. So what you're going to expect, who you're meeting with, give you the opportunity to look at their profiles on LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about their background. So make sure that you're really like taking advantage of the one-on-one time that you have with your recruiter as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your very detailed answers. And I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Ian?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, great question. And then I see we have two last questions here today. So over to Joyce. Thank you for your patience.
Hello. Okay, thank you so much, Chelsea, for organizing this event. It's been really nice. So just to introduce myself, my name is Joyce. I'm a third year co-op student at UBC, and I saw this event on LinkedIn, and I thought it would be like a great opportunity to kind of like get to know these companies a little better. So I was wondering if you guys will be like hiring for fall co-op internships.
Great question.
What do you do, Joyce? What's your program?
Yes, so I'm in marketing and business analytics.
Very cool. Yep, Visier hires co-ops on 3 intake terms per year, and our co-op placements last for 8 months. We're actually in the middle of co-op recruiting season right now. So if you checked our website, then you'll be able to see our open opportunities. We recruit, as I said, 3 times a year, and our intakes are, our recruiting season is really January, May, and September. And again, those last for 8 months.
Fantastic.
Very similar timeline for us as well. So just keep your eyes peeled to the website, and then also, like I mentioned, join our talent community if you haven't already.
Perfect. And clear. Any intern or co-op positions available?
Yes, exact same question. Exact same answer. We interview 3 times a year, and it really depends. Sometimes we do 8 months, and sometimes we do 4 months.
Fantastic. And Joyce, if you apply for Visier, don't forget that cover letter.
Thank you.
Okay, great question. And then last question from Artem. Oh, I think I've actually got one more question. Okay, over to Artem for your question.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Chelsea. Thanks for the great panel and the great questions from participants today. It was very interesting. I just wanted to come back to Andrea's answer regarding cover letters for a quick follow-up. Now, as Andrea mentioned that, as you mentioned, you have everything goes to ATS, so which makes sense for the company the size of Tableau. But there is a question. So the question is about the format of cover letters, there's a common advice to make them as personalized as possible, to find out the name of the hiring manager, et cetera, which might not be always possible, and might be actually counterproductive, as it's still going into 8 years, getting kind of a depersonalized, so to speak. So how important are those personal details, or is it more the message, the actual content of the cover letter that counts most? Well, it probably does, but still.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered the question yourself almost, but so when you are applying to the two companies, make sure that if you are using your cover letter and you are personalizing it, like Michelle said, you're not just adding buzzwords to fill up the page. You know, you're actually using content that is directly related to experience that you have and your interest level in position. And then with respect to the format for a resume, like PDF versus Word, for example, I always go with PDF. It depends on the company that you're applying for. Sometimes they don't allow you to upload documents in a certain form. So it really is dependent on the company that you're applying for at the end of the day.
If I may, it wasn't quite about the format of the file, but rather the format of the letter. How, there is if you go on the internet and Google up cover letter examples, you'll find so many, and most of them, they have the company address, the name of the person you're addressing it to, you're like the
I see.
polite address, like dear Mr. or Miss, or any kind of address that is required, and then all the usual, business communication formally that are need to be in a formal email, so to speak. How important those are. Like, if I don't find the name of the manager, which I probably wouldn't if I would look for a position in Tableau,
I would focus your energy on your resume and your experience over the address of the company, the name of the hiring manager, or those other details. So if you're going to spend time anywhere, make sure it's personalizing your resume for the position that you're applying for at the company that you're applying for, over and above everything else.
All right, I hope that answers your question, Artem, and nice to see you again.
Thank you, Chelsea. It's nice to see you. I mean, it's a great panel. I just, sorry I wasted my pitch last time.
No, not at all. It's never wasted time. All right, thank you for your question. Last question from Saba today. Hi, Saba.
Hi, thank you so much for the information. Like, I really very thankful to all of you for giving wonderful insight of what you see. So as somebody touched about co-op, so I just wanted to know, apart from job hiring for co-op, what would you like to see in a candidate?
Good question. Any takers?
Hey, I mean, I can give some insight into that, because I used to manage the co-op program at Vizier when I first started, when we were smaller. And honestly, it's like people that are genuinely curious, that take the time to learn about us just as much as we're taking the time to learn about them. If you can co-op anywhere, be purposeful about why you want to co-op at that place, right? Like, don't just make it like, hey, I'll take any co-op job. I don't know, just give me one. Whilst I understand that there is that urgency to it, and hey, we all just want to do the hustle and get the job. I totally get that. That extra effort that shows that hey, I noticed that you were doing this in the news. I really and again, this is specific to our landscape in the software world. I love what your product does. I can really see how it is doing X, Y, and Z. And I notice your company values. And honestly, one of my values is, learning as well. And I noticed one of your values is never stop learning. And that's important to me for X, Y, Z reasons. So I think it's know where you've applied, do your research on those companies, and make sure that you're prepared for the phone call. Because sometimes you get 15 minutes to talk to that person and that's it. And you've kind of got, much to like today, the team, here that did their pitches, you got 15 minutes to make your pitch to that company. So make sure that if you've applied to 10 co-op jobs and you get 5 interviews, spend your time in like researching those 5 companies and make sure that you're ready to go, and ask good questions. Like, I can't stress enough how having a well thought, considered question is just so refreshing and wonderful, because it's kind of obvious when people pull out, the usuals. As much as the culture question is relevant and I get it, people that don't like just blanket say, hey, what's your culture like? I always say to them, I'm like, well, what's culture mean to you? What's important to you in a culture? And then I'll help you. And sometimes I even say, ask me a better question because I want to know about you and I want to know what's important, right? So all I would say, exactly as Andrea said before, like double down in the places that it's going to matter the most. Don't try to do everything. Don't drink through a fire hose. Don't do the cover letter and the this and the that and the whatever, because it's just too much. Do a very good resume and do very good research and thorough prep for any time you get somebody on the phone, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour. So those are the places to be the most impressive on your resume and when you have a captive audience to talk to.
All right, fantastic answer, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you for your question, Saba. I'm going to end the questions here for today. So thank you all for your amazing and very interesting questions for our panelists. And I'm just going to start to wrap up the panel by asking Andrea, Michelle, and Mabel if they have any last remarks, words of wisdom, or tips that they want to share with you all.
Just really quickly, just be intentional when you're applying to places. When you're showing up for that 15-minute phone call, I know we all have really busy lives and a lot of like back-to-backs nowadays, but even, just like closing your eyes and like taking 3 big breaths before that phone call with a recruiter, with a company, or before you're going to jump into that cover letter can make a huge difference. And when you're intentional in what you do, it really, really shows up, and you can feel it, right? So I would just say be intentional.
I couldn't agree more. Love your answer, Mabel. Thank you.
I don't really have much to add aside from thank you for being interested in your own development and jumping on this panel and being present today. It's been really cool chatting to you and answering your questions. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. And all the very, very best in your job search. As I said before, I know that it's a lot of information and it's kind of hard to know exactly where to be and what to do sometimes, but I think Andrea put the notes in the comments as well, just around, there's just so many resources out there. Put in a little extra effort and read through those resources and look at the things that are available to you that are 100% free. And and can take a lot of time out of the end, takes out the guesswork. But anyways, very, very good luck to all of your job searches and your studies and everything that you're doing.
Beautiful last words, Michelle. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll echo the thank yous. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for your participation. Oftentimes there can be crickets, so it was so nice.
All right.
Just remember that. Oh, sorry. I have one
go ahead.
Is that when you're taking your job search, at the end of the day, is a job in itself, and so make sure that you're taking breaks as well, and you're not setting too many expectations or being too hard on yourself at the end of the day. Keep track of the places where you're applying. Take breaks. Timing, oftentimes, it needs to be on your side. So if it's not, don't try to force it. Just keep trying, and I have faith that you'll get there.
Love it. Thank you so much, Andrea. Andrea, Mabel, Michelle, thank you so much for joining our panel today. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you all, and thank you for taking the time out of your super busy schedules to join us. If anyone's looking for any work or new opportunities, check out Clear, Tableau, and Vizier's hiring pages. I believe there's some links in the chat here, so check out the chat for any links. And keep your eyes out for our July panel. Our June 28th panel has been canceled. So details for the July panel are coming out soon. We do have some August panels already listed on our events page, which is BCJobs.ca/events. So you can check out that website to register. And lastly, you can always shoot me an email with any questions to events@bcjobs.ca. I'm always happy to answer any questions or, check over your LinkedIn profile or resume. So feel free to shoot me an email. And thank you again for joining us and hope to see you next time. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.